Welcome to the show. I'm your host, Gwen Magoon. And of course, this morning we are having a conversation with the political party leader of Hope, Tupondroni Ndalo. And of course, as we close in on the national general elections on the 14th of November, today, before you cast your valuable votes, okay, we will look at the issues that matter to you as a voter and where each candidate stands. So please participate in this morning's discussion. You can call 3220906 or 3220907. Well, welcome to the show, Ms. Ndroni Ndalo. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you very much. Thank you for having me here.
All right, so yesterday you submitted your 28
Yes.
provisional candidates to the Fijian Elections Office. You also spoke about exceeding the 5% threshold, and you're confident about forming the next government. So maybe we could start by you telling the Fijian voters, why are you the right person for the job?
Well, let's start with our policies. As we had written and it was published last week, we are actually very flattered that some of our policy papers have been copied in some parts, probably in most parts, by not only the government but the main opposition party. So that already shows before we are even elected, we are influencing government policy. It shows we are competent and we're ready.
Great, and we'll go more into those
Yes.
policies in a bit.
Yes.
But okay, Tupo, you submitted 28 nominations as your provisional candidates yesterday. These 28 that you've chosen will help you
Yes.
to win the elections. Could you tell the Fijian voters, what is your party's competence? Let's assume they're elected. What skills do they bring to the table in terms of performing their political role, in terms of leading the country?
Thank you. Thank you very much. Many of our candidates are from what we would call struggle street. They know the struggles of everyday life, which has been somewhat a criticism of our party before that, is that many of us are lawyers, the officials, and people who don't know day-to-day struggle. That's been the criticism. Of course, it's not correct. We do know what's going on out there. Otherwise, we wouldn't be standing. How can we represent people if we don't know what their plight is? But perhaps the electorate likes to see people who are like themselves too, and not just lawyers or people they think are from political families, dynasties and the like, which we don't like. So that was the reason why we chose people who can also speak on the day-to-day issues, the struggles of life, and which they can relate to every day. And they have the common person's wisdom, which is great wisdom, actually, I think.
So you've submitted nominations for your provisional candidates. Can we expect to see your manifesto soon? Or let's just perhaps discuss now some of the key policies in your manifesto.
Yes. Our manifesto will not be a very, how shall I put it, not be a very, will not have too many frills, our manifesto. It'll be possibly a dry policy document, but one that will try and communicate in a very effective way. And already we've put policy papers out, as I say, and I can confidently say, and members of my party think, that the government is looking into the proposals, the structure of our minimum wage proposal, and also the changing of the curriculum at primary and secondary school by inviting Australia, New Zealand, Japan, and the EU to come and assist the Fijian government with that. And that's one of the key planks of our policy proposals, which we believe the government has taken on board without acknowledging it. That's fine. We don't care who gets the credit, so long as Fiji benefits, we're happy. And also the main opposition party, we believe, has taken on our proposal with regards to changing of the foreign investment laws. So that's good as well.
Now, the Fiji First Party, they're already trumpeting their record as they urge Fijians to re-elect them. Now, if you are elected, are you looking at retaining some of their policies, or are you perhaps critical of some? And what what are you proposing instead?
Well, we'll have to go through each area of government when we get in. Clearly, we will not be agreeing with the TELS policy. We don't believe in saddling students with a lot of debt by the time they graduate. That's something we will not be agreeing with. I know the government has said that, it costs a lot of money. Of course, it costs a lot of money. We believe it's very, very important investment because we can throw away money on a lot of things in this country. No one complains or bats an eyelid. But somehow, if you talk about giving millions of dollars to education for our future, everyone thinks it's a problem. I don't think that's the way to go. So our priority on education is very, very high because we have benefited. My colleagues and I, who are officials of the party, we have had the benefit of great education, and we would like every child in this country to benefit from similar.
Now, how about the economy? The Reserve Bank of Fiji, their September report, highlights this is the 9th year of consecutive growth for the country. What's your stand on this?
I think I said the same thing at the last elections, which it's great to talk about consecutive growths, but if it's not being seen out in the electorate with the people in terms of, let's say, the $2.68 minimum wage, that doesn't reflect very much growth in the economy. So we can, boast about a lot of figures, but if it's not happening out on the ground to people on the ground, and if constituents are telling us that it's getting harder to buy food and groceries every day and every week, then we'll have to question what kind of growth we're having.
So you are still standing by the minimum wage rate being increased to $10 an hour?
Our policy paper says up to $10 an hour, sector by sector, and it's by consultation with employers, the biggest taxpayers first. And some of the biggest taxpayers in this country employ thousands of people. So if those thousands of employees can benefit first, who's to complain? If it's good for the employers and they agree, great for the employees who will get an increase in wages, say from $4.80 an hour to $8 an hour, plus productivity pledges from employees to employers. I find it very difficult to understand how employers will not like the proposal. But again, it's voluntary. Nothing is forced. It's a negotiation, tripartite thing, and we'll implement it when we get to government.
Well, to our viewers and listeners, this is more than just the candidates contesting the elections. This is about you choosing, for them to lead you in the next 4 years. So please ask your questions. The lines are now open, 322-0906 or 322-0907. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind. And of course, this morning we're having a conversation with the leader of the political party Hope, Mr. Pondrauni Ndalo. Tupo, let's just go back to the, the economy. One of the things that's close to the heart of Fijian voters is the cost of living. Eh? In your view, does the current economy stabilize the cost of living? If not, what strategies are you proposing if you're elected to help ease this, to keep the economy competitive, to help create jobs?
Well, after the 2014 elections, the government slapped 9% VAT on goods that were otherwise not, were otherwise exempt from VAT. And that 9% increase costs a great deal. And we know duties have been going up as well, and levies and licenses and charges. In fact, it was, I'm not sure whether it was the papers for the 2016 or 2017 budget, in which the Ministry of Economy itself put out on a piece of paper how much money that it was going to collect. And I think it said 1/3 was from direct income taxes and 2/3 from indirect taxes, charges, and levies. That was a lot of money. I think it was over $2 billion. So that shows the amount of indirect taxes that the government collects from things like food and consumption every day, which is wearing down on, I believe, on consumers every day.
If you have any questions at all for Ms. Ndalo, please call in 322-0906 or 322-0907. When you look at family and health, the $5 million parenthood assistance payment, again, will you retain this if you're elected, or are you perhaps critical of it and, you're proposing changes?
We will retain the policies of the government that help or assist those who need assistance, of course we will retain it. Many of our candidates who have been approved by the supervisor, they are mothers, and they are providers for their families' daily needs. So of course we'll be very sensitive to those issues, and the assistance that's given to them by the government, we will retain it. If we can improve it, we will improve it. We don't believe in overhaul. We don't believe in causing too much of a disruption to government services. It'll be done gently and with a lot of thought and care.
You spoke about, TELS. Let's just touch on
Yes.
education again. How about free education for those in the primary and then the secondary level? Will you retain that
Of
too?
course, that was something that had been developed by previous governments, and I think the current government completed it from Form 5, 6, and 7. I believe that was the case. From Form 1 to 4 and from Class 1 to Form 1, it had already been free from previous governments. So it was an evolutionary thing, which the current government took further to Form 5, 6, and 7, I believe the forms are. And that's a good thing. That's how governments evolve with stability. You keep improving. So, the government came in 2006 in means that we didn't agree with, but that's happened. They've implemented their policies, and we propose to continue gently and lawfully from where they leave off, should we be successful.
Mm-hmm. So you're pretty supportive of the majority of the policies that have been implemented?
Put it this way, the policies that have been implemented and are good, there is no reason to remove them. If we can improve them, we will. But that's not to say that, we will be quite, how shall I put it, sensitive if we are successful in not looking back and blaming previous governments for anything. We just want to get on with the job and get to where we are going.
All right. Now, Tupo, you and Mr. Sitiveni Rambuka have been getting into some heated exchange lately, and you have been, very outspoken about the coup of 1987, hitting, hard against him for wanting to run for elections again. Maybe you could tell us, what your issue is here with Mr. Rambuka.
Well, number one, anyone who knows me and my record in terms of public office or being involved in public issue matters will know I hit those who conduct coups with equal measure. After 2006, I don't think Mr. Bainimarama liked me very much. Not at all. Now, when I'm hitting Mr. Bainimarama, nobody is talking to me about personal issues. Why is it different when I'm hitting another coup maker? I'd be exactly the same with Mr. Spate, except that he's in prison. It's nothing personal. Coups have cost this country billions of dollars that could have gone to education and health and wages. That's public money. It's not a personal issue. It's public money, and we should all be talking about it. And it's not just Mr. Rambuka, as I've said. I've hit them all in equal measure.
I just need your response on this. He claims that, Mr. Rambuka claims you lack the experience and you're just criticizing him for public attention.
Yeah. Well, I can say that my CV does not include that I crashed the National Bank. He crashed the National Bank. He had no training in government affairs when he took government by force in 1987. I'm a trained lawyer. He came from, I don't know where. And
also, Tupo, are you done with your answers?
Yes.
Okay. And you've, labeled him as well as a wreck of Fiji and a coup man. Those who support Mr. Rambuka, his backers, they disagree, claiming he will bring change to Fiji and he's better on specific issues. And one I'd like to highlight here is Itoke issues. Do you agree or not? And how would you do a better job at handling this?
Well, let's focus on Itoke issues, which he and his party like to think that they have a monopoly on, which the electorate of Fiji disagreed with at the last elections. The majority of them voted for Fiji First instead of them. So already They were not. They were discounted then. But let's focus in on the claim that he and his party have a monopoly on good things for the Tokay. This is the man that got rid of a constitution which protected Itoke land to the degree which they are now crying for. They want the two houses of parliament, the Senate and the lower house, and they want the GCC to approve any legislation, or the GCC reps in the Senate to approve any legislation that went to the parliament, which touched on Itoke matters. All of those things were in that constitution, and he was the one that threw it away. Now, granted, he worked with the opposition, and they brought the 1997 constitution. Then there are all sorts of allegations with regard to the 2000 coup and the mutiny. He's not a very stable man. He's a man of chaos and instability, and that's not good for our government.
And once again, to our viewers and listeners, you will attend the campaign rallies, you will hear the speeches. But today, as we feature political party leaders on Speak Your Mind, beginning today with Mr. Pondrani Ndalo, as political parties vie for your attention, vie for your votes. More importantly, if you have any questions, call 3220906 or 3220907. Good morning and welcome back to Speak Your Mind. Well, Mr. Ndalo, we do have a caller for you. Sir, go ahead with your question.
Yeah, Nisambula. Actually, I don't have a question, but I just want to lay out my sincere thanks to Mrs. Ndalo for having a courage to stand up in the male-dominated arena. I just want to thank her and what new things she's going to bring to our country. You know, in this uncertain climatic environment, I think we people of Fiji, we need hope to carry us forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your call, sir. Thank you so much for your call, sir. And of course, if you have any other questions for Ms. Ndalo, call 3220906. Tupo, you wanted to go back to the issues that we were talking about, specifically the Itoke issues, and you wanted to touch on the Great Council of Chiefs?
Yes.
Go ahead.
Well, there's been a lot of noise from SODELPA and from their leader about the GCC, saying that they want to restore it. But again, he does not mention that after his 1987 coup, his government and he changed the laws of the Fijian administration so that the members of the GCC were not only the heads of Yavusa. You see, he politicized the GCC, and that made those chiefs who did not agree with their political views, it kept them out of the decision-making of the GCC, which upset a lot of chiefs. And I think what has happened when Mr. Bainimarama got rid of the GCC, that's why there was not that much sympathy for the GCC, because there were chiefs who were genuinely displeased with the politicizing of the GCC. And that was caused by him. You know, we should keep this chiefs' body separate from politics, like we should separate the church from politics.
Oh, and we just have another caller here on the line. Please go ahead with your question. Hello. Yes, go ahead with your question, please.
Yeah, I would like to ask party leader on how will they increase the minimum wages in view of the mass redundancy that is possible. Thank you.
Thank you very much for that question. That's an issue that has been raised in many discussions. Again, I want to say no one will be redundant because employers have to agree to it, and so do workers have to agree to the compromise that's reached. And I don't think they will reach any agreement if that means the loss of employment. And certainly the government will not be giving tax breaks to any employer that lets go of employees while taking the benefits that government is offering for the increase in wages. We are offering to, under our plan, give employers, big employers, tax breaks. And if we've given tax breaks and the employers raise the minimum wage in that sector, but also intend to release or do release employees from employment, they will not get the benefits from government. Very simple.
Tupo, just going back to something that you had highlighted earlier about the Great Council of Chiefs. So if you assumed that, you're elected, would you reinstate the Great Council of Chiefs?
I've said this before. If, say, the Fijian Parliament received a petition that the Great Council of Chiefs be reinstated, my government will allow that petition to stand, and so that a committee can go around Fiji and get the views of the people of this country, whether they want their chiefs to have this body and in what form. I've said this many times before, and I stand by it.
Okay. We have another caller on the line. Please go ahead with your question.
Yeah, thank you. I was the one that called first earlier on. Actually, I'm calling from Lambasa. And once again, I want to thank Mrs. Ndonindalo for speaking out the truth. Now on record, I just want to thank her and what new things she will offer for us. I really like her explanation because she's telling the truth and answering your question marvelously. And once again, Fiji's political climate requires hope at the moment. Naga.
And if you perhaps have any other questions that you'd like to ask Ms. Ndonindalo this morning, the lines are now open, 3220906. Tupo, has the Hope Party, have they started campaigning, and what issues are you going to be campaigning on?
Yes, as soon as we were registered, we were allowed to campaign, and we've been out and about with not only policy papers in the newspapers and online, we've also been on the ground having meetings and explaining those policy papers. We just want to talk about those policy papers because, to be very frank with you, the pocket meetings don't care too much about personalities and personal issues. They don't want to know. They just want to know, what are you going to do for us if you get to government? And so we are happy to explain our policy papers.
Okay. Oh, we just lost that caller there. But yes, if you have any other questions, for Ms. Ndonindalo, the lines are open. Call 3220906 or 3220907. Let's just touch on your, the policies of the party. Can we just go into into more greater detail about it?
Yes.
Oh, sorry. Can I just take this call?
Yes, sure.
Please go. Yes, go ahead with your question.
Yes, my question is. Excuse me. First of all, thank you. My question is, we have a lot of Chinese working here. I am sure they are working, they don't have visas, working permits, whatever. And the second point is, they collect their money and send it offshore. This is deriving the Fijians of this country food on their table. What will the Hope government do to eradicate that? Thank you.
If that's the issue concerning the selling of passports to foreign nationals, we will make the conditions for getting the passports in this country very stringent. Of course, we welcome foreign investors, but we've already set out our policy paper on the changing of foreign investment laws. And if foreign investors who fall into that category, we've said that up to a certain amount, we will be encouraging foreign investors in the two main areas that we want to concentrate in terms of developing the economy, and that's agriculture and tourism. If foreign investors want to come in, we will encourage them to contribute a lot of funding and technology into these two sectors. And if they come into those two sectors, we would make it a condition of their getting a license is to get partnership from the landowners whose land will be used for the agriculture or for tourism. And over time, maybe 3 to 5 years, we would expect the foreign investor to have rigorously trained the local partner so that they can come up to par and have majority shares in the business. It could be 51% or 55%, but that leaves the local partner and the landowning unit in charge, which I think is a great thing. And I know any foreign investor who comes to invest that kind of money and technology here would train the local partner very well so that that business will grow because they want their money. If they have 49%, they want 49% of a lot of money. They don't want 49% of a little bit of money. So it's in their interest to rigorously train the local landowners. And the landowners will be very happy. And I think that will be a great progress for the Tauke.
Well, we'll go into a short break. Thank you so much for participating in the interview and continue to do so. The lines are open, 3220906 or 3220907. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind. And of course, on the show, we are having a conversation with the leader of the political party, Hope, Ms. Tupondra Ndalo. And as we've said before you cast your valuable vote on the 14th of November, as a Fijian voter, if you have any questions, please call 3220906. Tupo, we'll just take this call again.
Thank you.
Okay, go ahead with your question, sir. Are you there?
Yeah.
Please go ahead with your question.
Yes, first of all, thank you, Ms. Ndalo. That was really good. The second point is we still have a lot of oversteers in Chinese that are still taking up jobs off the top of the table. Would your government look into these oversteers and get rid of them? Thank you.
Any overstay is a matter for the Department of Immigration, and we hope that the director will continue to do his job as he does. And I think the last I recall, the Prime Minister was the Minister for Immigration. I'm sure he's got his finger on the pulse there, but should we be successful and that portfolio falls to me, I'll surely be asking the director if he's on top of that.
Okay, and we have another call on the line. Please go ahead with your question.
Hello? Yeah, this is from Lambasa again. The current government department setup, most of the government departments, they are not autonomous. Everything is controlled by one person or two. Yeah. If the Hope Party comes into government, what can she do to decentralize the autonomous power so that everybody can have their own judgment done at various localities, rather than depending on one phantom backdrop, which we don't know whether exists or not. If she can get rid of the non-autonomous government department, that to get rid of the autonomous department that we have now. That's my question, Vinaka.
Thank you very much for the question. I believe that's about whether, I may be corrected, but I believe that's about whether the cabinet and cabinet ministers, in looking after their portfolios and the departments that fall under their ministries, whether they will have, independence and an equal say and discussion in cabinet decisions. The Hope Party, in our consultations between officials and also with the candidates, we've always operated in that way. We respect the view, every view that's there. And, everyone is encouraged to give their point of view. Every view is given the equal amount of weight. And but we do emphasize that for the sake of stability and the appearance of professionalism, and in fact professionalism, that we present one voice outward, and we take, and that's in fact from how the cabinets operate, cabinet responsibility, the system that comes from the United Kingdom. That's what we will also have. The cabinet will thresh out issues amongst ourselves, and I can tell you, our officials are mostly lawyers, and lawyers are well known for having differences of opinion, and very strong differences of opinion and strong minds. And we have threshed out issues. I'm occasionally told by one or two who are more senior to me at the bar that I need to, keep on the straight and narrow. Sometimes I stray onto issues they don't wish that we get involved with, and I take their advice. So, that's just a very professional way to deal with things. If I disagree with them, I can sometimes be blunt, or I can sometimes just withdraw into my shell for 5 seconds. But after that, I know we all have a job to do, and I will have to take their advice, because if it's not for them, I wouldn't be able to do the job that I do.
And we have another call on the line. Please go ahead with your question.
Hello. I earlier called. My concern is loss of money, or the debt, a type of debt dependence, if you like, to overseas investors, especially again Chinese. Is this true, and what does your party will do about it?
Thank you very much. Yes, I believe the national debt stands at $6 billion, and the international credit agencies that we've read have said that it can be managed and is manageable, and that's something we would like to rein in, and we've made it very clear in our policy paper on foreign affairs that all Chinese nationals and the Chinese government is welcome in this country, of course, like any other investor and any other government, but we do not wish to have any part of Fiji to be involved in any debt trap, like has happened in Sri Lanka, where Sri Lanka, I believe, is a bigger, older country than ourselves and wealthier, and they've defaulted on debts to China, and China has, it has been reported, taken over one of their ports. Now, that's not something that the Hope government would like for Fiji, for it to be happening here in this country, and we'll take great care with that. And I think Dr. Mahathir has himself done that once he was elected. He straight away got onto the issue and said he would be telling the Chinese that he would like to revisit the agreements that his country has entered into, the previous administration with China, and I think he's still on to that. So we're pretty much of the same mind. We think that Fiji, such a beautiful country, so much resources, enough for everybody in this country. We have more than enough. We just need to manage those resources well, and to make sure we don't get ourselves into the kind of trouble that places like Sri Lanka has got into with that port. And I also have to add that this look north policy that has been favored by some administrations in this country, they have usually come after political instability, which is unfortunate, and mostly because the administrations don't want to listen to our neighbors, to their good advice, Australia and New Zealand and the like. Yes, sometimes Australia and New Zealand, they can be upsetting because they also have their self-interest, and we must watch out for that. But it's a matter of managing competing interests and always putting Fiji first and foremost. That's what any government should do. And of course, I hope government will always put Fiji first above all other interests.
On Speak Your Mind, we're having a conversation this morning with the leader of the political party Hope, Ms. Tupou Ndalo. Please continue to participate. Call in with your questions. 3220906 or 3220907. Welcome back to Speak Your Mind. And of course, on the show is the political party leader for Hope, Ms. Tupoundrani Ndalo. And of course, if you have any questions for her, remember the lines are now open, 3220906 or 3220907. Tupo, let's just continue to, discuss where the Hope political party stands on key issues. Can we talk about employment?
Thank you. This is a key plank of our policy paper and one that will be coming out. We've written it in parts over some time now, but I think we'll need to pull it all together. And what we tell the electorate is the most important thing for Fiji is the rule of law and political stability. And because many, many Fijians ask me from various parts of the country, why is it that you emphasize the rule of law? What does it mean? It sounds very academic. And political stability. Is this about the coup culture? And why are you so on about this? I say, look, the reason why is because that's the thing that investors love the most, private investors, whether it's private investors in Fiji or from overseas. When they want to invest their money, they want to go to a country that they know is politically stable, and they don't want to go and invest, let's say, $1 million. 5 years later, someone from the military gets upset, does something, there's political instability, the laws change all of a sudden, and his investment or her investment is no longer there or is no longer safe. Now, that's not a reputation we wish to have. Unfortunately, some recent studies have shown that that is the reputation that we have. We want to change that. We want to tell investors, no, Fiji is good for investment. We are politically stable. We all respect the rule of law. Our institutions are independent because it is private investment that's going to grow the economy. When people come and invest their money here, whether from overseas or here in Fiji, that is how businesses grow and open up, and that's how employment is created.
Okay, we'll continue with that. But right now, we'll just take another caller. Please go ahead with your question. Go ahead with your question, please.
Yeah, what's the land bank? This land bank, which is implemented by Fiji First. Your party will continue use the land bank?
Thank you. Of course not. When I was in Parliament, that was, I think, one of the best motions I ever moved. And it was during budget debate in which I moved a motion that the land bank, the office that's in charge of it, I believe it's the land use department or something of that sort, which comes under the Prime Minister's office. I moved a motion that all the money that was budgeted for that office be brought down to zero for that year so that they can't do their job. Because, and I explained to the Parliament why I thought the land bank and the land use decree was not a good idea. And that is because even though landowners can give their consent, 51%, to put their land into the land bank, the law says very clearly that that the land will be locked up once they've got 51% consent. The land will be locked up in the land bank for 99 years. And for 99 years, no landowner, no member of that landowning unit can question or take the matter to court. Now, that is a worry because we all know why. Landowners right now, they are under the protection of the trust system, which is the Native Land Trust Board, now the Itaukei Land Trust Board. Under that trust system, we all know in a trust, anybody who's a beneficiary of a trust, when you're upset with your trustee, you take them to court. And all the courts around Fiji, you will see there are actions against the Itaukei Trust Board, Itaukei Lands Trust Board. That's because landowners, upset with how the board has dealt with their land, they can go and sue the board. They go to court, we say, we don't like the board's decision giving this lease, we don't like the board's decision in cancelling this lease, we don't like the board's decision in extending the lease. So that's what happens now. Under our trust system, we are allowed to do that, which is very good. We can question our trust anytime in court for whatever action they do. But once landowners give their consent to take their land out of an LTB or ITLTB and put it into the land bank, you can no longer do that. Landowners can no longer go to court and question, because under the legislation, the Land Use Act, I think it was 2010, under that act, landowners can't question any decision that's made under the Land Bank, and I think ultimately it's the Prime Minister's decision. So it's not just the current Prime Minister. Let's say one landowning unit gives their land today to put into the Land Bank, and because they support this Prime Minister. So if he loses government, this Prime Minister is no longer Prime Minister after November, or this Prime Minister is no longer Prime Minister in the next 4 years, another Prime Minister will come and have that power over that land. So the landowners, they can't change their mind then. Oh no, we only gave that because we trust Mr. Bainimarama. No. That's any Prime Minister for 99 years will be in control of that land. And that's not something I think that landowning units should do, because 99 years is too long. That's like 2 generations. Fijians are dying very young these days because of NCDs, and 99 years just takes the land away for too long a time, without question.
Tupo, let's just take this next caller.
Thank you.
Please go ahead with your question.
Thank you. Okay, the second question is like, any other similarities of that kind? Is that land bank is when it's something like it's a slavery system. So now we know that it's something like a slavery system. Any other thing which done by the Fiji First, that similar to that kind of slavery system? Thank you. This is Dau.
Thank you very much. Like I say, consent of the landowners has to be taken before their land is put into the Land Bank. All I was saying in Parliament is to warn landowners, if you say yes, don't complain, because it's gone for 99 years, and any Prime Minister in the next 99 years is going to control the land, and you can't question it in court.
Tupo, there's just something I needed to ask you just before we wrap. In an interview in August, you spoke about the right to vote being a sacred thing. Does this country need better informed voters, those who understand that casting a vote is electing people who have great power and control over countries, policies and the economy and education and so forth?
Thank you very much for that question. I think all of us, this radio station, which is publicly funded, each politician that is running, it's our duty to let voters know of that. I've tried to do that in the last how many years that I've been in politics actively, is to tell all citizens, please be careful of your vote. It's very valuable. You will decide. Don't complain after the election. You have to think about your vote very carefully. Half the job is the job of the politicians. We come around with our policies. We'll come around and say, this is what our policies are, this is what we want to do. Half the job is the voters' job. It's for the voters to assess all the policies and all the people. Is this someone who's been talking about the same thing for 20 years or 30 years, or is this someone who's just changing their mind to suit the circumstances, suit their pocket, or whatever it is? It's the voters' job to assess all the policies before they vote. It's a very, very important civic duty. That's the only way they can really check on the government. And I would encourage every voter, please don't listen to those who are talking about division of votes and whatnot. That is your right. You can choose as you please. And the polls in the Fiji Times, which is the Tebat polls, have shown that for 2 years, I believe, 42%, and I've heard from last week it's larger now on another private poll, were undecided who to vote for. That's the majority of the people in this country. Now, that is good in the sense that people are beginning to think of where they're going to put their vote, and I would encourage them, please think about it carefully. And if people come and tell you, don't split the vote, don't waste your vote giving it to a small party, just know that that party or that person is speaking from a place of fear of losing power.
And with those words, we'll have to wrap Speak Your Mind for another Tuesday. And of course, Tupo Ndronindalo, leader of the political party Hope, thank you so much for your time. I appreciate you appearing on Speak Your Mind. And until next Tuesday, you have a great week ahead.